Yeah.
Yep.
All right, you're all good.
All right, so being 6:30 on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022, and having quorum, I'll open the virtual planning board meeting for this evening. The first item on the agenda is call to order. As part of that, I'll leave a quick memo. I should know this by now, right? Pursuant to the town manager's direction, no in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted to attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. This meeting is being recorded, and within 48 hours, we'll post a link to the recording on the town's website and/or other social media pages. The following members of the Bridgewater Planning Board are participating remotely this evening. I'm Patrick Fiscal, the chair, Mr. Raymond Adjemian, Ms. Astrid Rojas, Mr. Michael McDonald, the vice chair. I don't think the associates are with us this evening, correct, Shane?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are the associates with us this evening or no?
Yeah, Ted and MJ are here.
Oh, they are, I'm sorry. So two associates are with us this evening, Mr. Ted Haley and MJ Spagon. So let's see. During this meeting, all votes will be taken as roll calls. The following Bridgewater town staff are also participating with us this evening remotely. Mr. Shane O'Brien, the town planner. Mr. Greg Tansey, the town engineer. I got everybody, correct?
That's correct.
No problems with my computer here, I'm sorry. At this time, everyone's mics are muted. The board's mics be unmuted during the whole meeting. And as items appear on the agenda, the project's representatives' mics be unmuted. If a project is a public hearing and allows for public comment, we ask that you use the chat feature to ask your question by listing your name and your address and your question. The host will recognize all questions in order. You can also use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu and be unmuted when the host recognizes you. Again, whether you're asking a question in the chat or on the Zoom, please state your name and address before asking a question. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Item 2 on the agenda is a public hearing. We have 210 Broad Street, proposed by 210 Broad Street Realty LLC. This is a site plan and special permit. It's continued from August 3rd, August 17th, September 7th, and September 19th. We did receive a piece of correspondence from Strong Point, the engineering firm, asking for continuation to November 2nd meeting. The correspondence was dated October 19th, addressed to the planning board, in reference to 210 Broad Street, asking for us to be continued to our meeting. Does it even ask for a meeting date?
They said on their request next available public hearing. So that would be our November 2nd meeting.
So if there's no discussion by the board, do we have a motion to continue the public hearing to our next meeting date, which is November 2nd?
I'll make that.
So moved.
By Mr. McDonald, to a second by Mr. Adjemian.
Yes, second,
Second by Mr. Adjemian.
yes,
Any discussion? Mr. Rojas,
yes,
Mr. Adjemian,
yes,
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you. So next on the agenda, item 3, we have board business. The first item on the board business is Oldfield Estates. This is a bond release request for phases 1 and 2, Oldfield Road 2 bond, continued from September 21st meeting. Is Attorney Castanetti on with us?
I do not see his
Or
name
anybody
on.
from Longboat Homes?
I do not see Lee here, nor anyone from Long Built Homes.
Do we want to continue with this item or wait to see if they join us? Or would you like to update the board on what's going on and explain all the correspondence we got in regards to the
I think,
releases?
I think we can take, I think I would recommend to take the items out of order and then see if Mr. Castanet arrives.
All right, so item 2, we have Rolling Pine subdivision. This is a bond reduction request. I'll turn this over to you, Mr. O'Brien.
Sure thing. Let me just pull out my memo quick. So pretty reasonable request. We received a request from the owner of Rolling Pines for the release of the remaining funds. Rolling Pines was accepted as a public way in 2019 at the September 13, 2019 council meeting, where there was a stipulation that $5,000 be held for 3 years, and that the acceptance of is conditioned upon the $5,000 of the current road bond being retained for a period of 3 years to assure that road repair and maintenance stand up to the town's discretion. So 3 years from that time would be September 3rd, 2022, which is passed. And I don't believe there is any issue with the road, from my understanding. We currently hold a balance of $10,501.25. Originally $10,000, but it was an interest-bearing account. So I would just recommend the board that they released all monies plus interest to the applicant, with the exception of the $5,000 to be held by the board for that stormwater management fee.
Just for the record, we said 2 years on a decision, right?
The board said 2 years, council added a year to that.
Okay, all right, good. So, and just to clarify, there is over 10,000, but we're retaining 5 for stormwater maintenance.
That's correct. We would be releasing all monies except for $5,000.
Is there any discussion on this item?
I would just ask Mr. Tansey to agree to that, that's all.
Yes, we currently holding, we require 10,000, but when this subdivision was approved, they only required to hold 5,000 for stormwater maintenance.
All right, so do we have a motion to release the $5,000 and retain? Well, it's a little over 5,000, correct, Shane?
Yeah, I would say release all remaining. I would say that the vote be release all remaining funds and hold $5,000 for the stormwater fee.
Do we have a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
By Mr. Jimmy?
I can second that.
Who seconded that, Astrid?
After.
By Ms. Rojas? Any discussion? Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Rojas?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy?
Yes,
And I'm yes, okay. In the meantime, do we have anybody join us on both phones?
Not that I am aware of.
All right, so we'll take item 3 under board business out of order. This is regards to 54 Grange Park / Nolan Park lot release. We discussed this in March 2021. I'll turn this over to you, Mr. O'Brien. I know we got a lot of correspondence on this.
Sure.
I don't know if the attorney is with us this evening or the applicant, and if you want to bring us up to speed, that'd be great.
We do have the attorney here, Attorney Heffernan, hello. This is kind of a follow-up to an item that was before the board in March of 2021, where the item was sent from this board, and there was a previous attorney representing the applicant regarding this Grange Park address. It's like Grange Park / I guess Norland Park, we've been calling it. So this is kind of a follow-up to that meeting because it's been a year. And from the March 2021 minutes, the board requested that we receive some correspondence from Attorney Rollins. And I talked to him earlier, a couple months ago regarding this project, but I would Probably ask that the applicant kind of present their case on the matter, and as there is a new attorney and they maybe have a new perspective on the matter, and I can bring up some matters and response to their response as well. So
Okay, well, Mr. and Mrs. Weldon are also here, and we're before you because there was not a decision made, and we didn't find out what town council had said in regard to this. I provided you with a book, which I usually don't do. But the reason I did it is to help us all understand what exactly happened and who was responsible for what. And I hope that you were able to go through my brief and the exhibits that are attached. But in short, there was the Norland Park subdivision. And in 2004, it went before the planning board, and the planning board had certain conditions and also was asked to approve a waiver. And one of the conditions that the planning board at the time in 2004 had several, it wanted covenants, certain covenants. And one of them was the one that you're all familiar with in regard to Massachusetts law, chapter 41, section 81U3, I believe. And in regard to that, that's just so that the planning board has security that the developer will complete the streets and put in the installation of the services. And what you use for security, under the law, you can use 4 different things. And what this applicant decided to use was a covenant. And that covenant was provided to the planning board. It was odd because the covenant was provided 5 years after the subdivision was approved. And the covenant is only for construction of ways and services on the property. There was another covenant that I believe the board was requesting from the applicant or the developer at that time. And that covenant was to restrict parcel A from being built upon. 2 different things, 2 different mechanisms for causing the restriction. There was also a drainage restriction. Anyway, to make a long story short, in 2010, it was endorsed in 2004. In 2010, the developer provided you with a covenant pursuant to this state law. And that was in October of 2010. In November of 2010, the developer sold the property to a new developer. In December of 2010, these are just months, you provided the second developer with a release for all lots except for parcel A. Why parcel A particularly, I don't know. But what happens thereafter is the developer, the second developer of Norland Park, sells 4 acres of parcel A to another developer on Grange Park. The reason why we're going into this is because Grange Park, that developer wanted to take an existing lot and make it into 2 retreat lots. In order to do that, it must have needed the upland acres from the first developer. And it used that to get a zoning board permit for the retreat lots, to also get from the planning board an ANR to divide the existing 60 Grange. And you'll see there that Lot A is 60 Grange, Lot B is 54 Grange. And you'll notice, if you can go up, Shane, a little bit towards the top, you'll notice that this land right here, which is in the box, that represents, I believe, the 4 acres that came from parcel A. So the zoning board, the planning board, and then on top of it, you have my clients who bought Lot A to live in. There was a house there, an existing house, and they bought Lot A. And the developer said, now that you live in Bridgewater, the lot beside you is for sale and you have first dibs on it if you want. Well, my client was a little cautious, and he said, okay, but first I want to get the building inspector's view on whether or not this is a buildable lot. So you had the building inspector write a letter saying that estate lot B was a buildable lot. Nothing was wrong. I've included that in your packet if you want to see the exact wording. And so my client, John Weldon, bought estate lot B. He has to move due to business reasons, and he goes to sell his home. When he sells his home, there are new buyers at 60 Grange. They have an attorney. They also have insurance, and the sale goes through. Then the Weldons decide, okay, we no longer need or want to have the lot that's referred to as Lot A or 54 Grange Park, so we're going to sell that. They go to sell that. They're represented by an attorney. They also purchase insurance, and they also have the claim of title reviewed. And it's only then that the buyer finds out about the covenant. So those 4 acres that came from Norland Park have, of course, a covenant on parcel A. Parcel A being about 26, and now it's -4, so it's 24, but you still have that covenant. I referred to the covenant in my memo to you as a restrictive covenant. I'm not sure, after looking at a lot of case law, that that's what I should have referred to it as. It probably isn't a restrictive covenant. It's more a covenant that the planning board, which does restrict land use, but it's not necessarily a restrictive covenant. The reason why I bring that up is because there are, what I'd like the planning board to do is not affect the existing Norland Park subdivision. I would only ask that you release my clients, and I don't have standing, of course, to ask you to release the people that they sold their property to. But I think that it would be equitable also to do that, to release them from this covenant that has nothing to do with their property. The purpose of the covenant, if you read the language, is to make sure under subdivision law that the subdivision, which is not my client's property, but the Norland Park subdivision, does what it's supposed to do according to the subdivision law. There's no reason the purpose of this covenant does not affect my client's property. And so we are asking that given two citizens of Bridgewater who bought their property and did what they were supposed to do, but ran into this problem because of some developers that didn't do what they were supposed to do, we're asking you to release it. And I don't know if you've been advised, but the planning board is allowed to file a document which just releases the covenant which is on my client's property and does not release the covenant which is on Norland Park's subdivision, which I think is a very important matter. And I would welcome any questions you might have. It's convoluted.
So I just have a question, Attorney Heffernan. You know, the waivers were granted, and I agree that the developer of Nolan Park should not have sold this land to the other developer. But it also seems like the intent of this was this 26.14 acres would be permanent open space. And that it says that they basically grant the waivers for the purpose of granting. It says, excuse me, the waiver will allow for the permanent prohibition of any building on 26.14 acres known as Parcel A. Well, Parcel A is no longer 26.14 acres. So my question would be, my question would be, shouldn't the developer be before us asking for the release or a modification?
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask for a clarification of what you said?
I would think that he should be asking for a modification to the subdivision.
No, you said the Parcel A was restricted to non-building. What was the reason you gave?
It says the board found that in the best interest of the town of Bridgewater to grant the waivers because the proposed development will improve the overall drainage of Nolan Park, and a waiver will allow for the permanent prohibition of any building on 26.14 acres known as Parcel A. Now, when that plan came before us, we were unaware of this condition.
So that's not sorry to go back legally, but that's not a condition. It's a waiver. So what the developer was supposed to provide the planning board with 3 covenants. One was under the statute that I'm talking about.
Right.
One was for drainage. And the third one was it was supposed to provide you with a restrictive covenant for Parcel A for the purpose because you asked for it because they asked for 2 waivers. They never gave that to the planning board.
Correct.
The restrictive covenant that is before you has nothing to do with getting open space. And you should have got from the developer 3 covenants.
We should have basically got a deed restriction for that property for open space.
Yes.
But we haven't released it yet, so we still can.
No. Well, so what you can do with the subdivision is totally up to you. And I don't want to aid anyone in hurting the subdivision laws of Bridgewater and Massachusetts. What I do want to point out, though, is that you don't have that open space restrictive covenant on Parcel A. What you have is a conditional covenant under the provisions of a statute, which purpose is solely to complete the road and the installation of the municipalities. And I think what happened is the planning board realized this after years of not having anything. And when it released the lots, which are in your packet, the planning board did release the restrictive covenant that we're talking about. But it
the-
didn't-
But at the same time, though, the neighborhood is not closed out. We still hold the bond. The road is not accepted. It's still an active subdivision under the planning board.
That's correct.
So before we would accept it or release the bond, we would want a restrictive covenant on that, on that property, I would think. We still have time to do that, that's what I'm saying, just because, I mean, I think a lot of people miss this, but it's not our job. It's the engineer should have picked this up, the attorneys.
I-
I think the intent of this was for 26.14 acres to be open space.
I agree with you, but that's not what happened. And so now
And I
you,
also think the developer knew that and then sold it to somebody else. I think this. is
I
between-
agree with you.
This is between two private parties.
yes. But the problem is you're using a covenant to not allow building on land that should be allowed to be built upon. And what we're asking is that you provide a release to us, not the subdivision developer.
But
Because-
that changes the 26.14 acres.
Well, when you think about it, it really doesn't, since the area of the 4 acres that was given is primarily wetlands. And nothing can be built, as you saw that square, nothing can be built up there. So it's still open land. The only buildable area in Lot B is down here, down near the street, Grange Park.
Now, Shane, can I ask you a question? So
Sure,
we have Oldfield Estates before us tonight, correct?
that is correct.
And
Hopefully,
we released all the lots in that neighborhood, and we're gonna release some of the bond money tonight, correct?
I
Potentially.
assume so, yes. We haven't voted, but sure.
But there are open space parcels or parcels that are deemed not to be built on that we're still waiting for.
Well, I would say that, I would say in the case of Oldfield Estates, it also originated as a open space, what we call an open space development that kind of melded itself into a subdivision. So,
But we still have parcels that we have not released the covenant on because we're waiting for permanent deed restrictions, correct?
I believe so, yes, correct. But I would say on this, to differentiate this one, the board kind of deemed these areas, and I kind of did a little MS Paint drawings, the lots that were kind of attached to the Form A that the board approved, that were sold off from that parcel A in order to essentially create estate lots B and estate lots A to give it the proper space to qualify for a proper building. But these quote unquote parcels were actually part of that original parcel A and attached there. So I think what would have been neater and cleaner through the A&R process with the applicant is if they performed an A&R plan with these items as separate parcels, being that they weren't combined because of this A&R plan. There happened to be a separate sale of this area of the parcel A, which shouldn't have been ideally sold with the intent of creating two estate lots. But in this case, you essentially have these invisible parcels that are mentioned on the deed in terms of the coordinates and just the space by it, that are kind of trapped with these two, estate lot B, estate lot A. Estate lot A has a building on it, and estate lot B, we're assuming, has the assumption that a building will be built on it. And we did receive it.
Shane, I want to open it up to other board members because I'm talking too much, but
Sure.
the board members that have been on here recall a while ago, the residents of Nolan Park came in. There's a common theme with this neighborhood, Nolan Park. The developer for a long time didn't do what he's supposed to do.
Mhm.
Infrastructure is poor. They actually came in and asked us to try to get the town attorney involved. We took a town attorney's opinion. I think releasing this would be going against it. I think if the neighbors found out up there that we modified what was supposed to be open space, after the pavement wasn't done right, the sidewalks weren't done right, the place sat there a mess for years. I still think if you talk to engineering, we're not, excuse me, things aren't up to par up there. So I just think there's a common theme with this developer, and I just think that this is between two private parties, and they need to go resolve it with them.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something in regard to
Keep
that?
it on the board members too, because I don't want to be the only one talking.
Sure, just quickly. You had asked me several questions about what you could do with the developer. And I think it might be beneficial if you speak with your town council about that before you decide on this matter. Because if this is denied, we will need to go bring a declaratory judgment in court. And I would like you to be advised as to what that might mean before make a decision, and maybe we could continue the hearing if you would allow, so that town council could advise you on what you were asking me.
I'd like to, yeah, sure, let's hear from other members of the board though, because
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that's exactly what I was thinking. This is an issue which is confusing to me. It seems like it's been going on for a long time. And I think that we need a written opinion from town council as to what to do. And I would suggest that we wait till we get it and not vote on anything tonight.
Shane, did we get an opinion from town council?
So in terms of an opinion on town council, Jason and I had a conversation. Let me pull up my packet because I want to get the date correctly, because of course we're on YouTube and being recorded. I want to be correct with what I'm saying, but let me get that in front of me. So I talked to Jason on August 11th, 2022. So a couple months ago regarding this project, I know Miss Heffernan and I have been conversing back and forth on this matter offline before we placed it on a board agenda. So I had a discussion with Attorney Rollins on it, just kind of talking about the issues that you brought up, Mr. Driscoll, Chairman Driscoll, in terms of some of the confusion on the matter and how this is tied to Nolan Park LLC. However, I do think we can present Ms. Heffernan's packet as well to Attorney Rollins, as I have not presented that information to him. I kind of reviewed it myself, and as well as the case law provided to the board regarding covenants. I think that would be suffice. I just wanted to get into a situation where over a year ago, the board sent something to Attorney Rollins and there wasn't a resolution. So my goal with this matter is just to get a resolution for both the applicant and the board, whether it be in the affirmative or in the negative on this matter. So, but you know, if the board's hope is to get more information based on this new information provided, I'm happy to meet and provide or ask of a legal opinion from Attorney Rollins on the matter.
You know, I think it's unfortunate we're in this situation. I think that the intent of this was to be open space. I think the developer or the original person that got this permitted knew it was supposed to be open space. And they went ahead and they sold it anyway. And that's not right. And I think that, you know, they should go after the person that sold the land with this restriction on it. I don't know why we're going back and forth to town council. It's to me, it's between two private parties. We have a restriction in a decision letter that a waiver was basically, I don't understand the waiver, but it was based off it. And the intent of it was to be open space. There are 6 lots in there that I can imagine if those residents knew this was going on and that open space was altered. The number of calls we got about the issues up there several years ago, we had half the neighborhood, probably the whole neighborhood before us. This developer this landowner has not done the right thing for a long time. And I think that it's between 2 private people. I mean, even if Jason Rollins came back and said that you can release this if you want, I wouldn't, because I think The intent was to be open space. It calls out 26.14 acres. And somebody went ahead and sold this, and they shouldn't have. And it's, I just don't know, we talked about this in 2001, we had the natives before us on other issues. I just think we need to make a decision on it.
Yeah, and I think there's some other outstanding questions too, because the information from that the applicant acted on the special permit as well, from the previous building inspector. It's a question of, is that property a state lot B, potentially a buildable lot, if the applicant came in for a building permit? There are questions in that case too, but it does lay the question too, for a future issues for the board. If someone takes a large, I wouldn't say an open space parcel, but a lot that's been unreleased, or a parcel that's been deemed not a buildable lot based on a subdivision decision, what latitude does a developer have to cut it up and sell it to adjacent property owners with certain language attached to those lots? So I think those questions are up in the air as well.
I mean, if we do have to consider releasing it, Shane, with the issues that we've had with that neighborhood, and the people that have invested in that neighborhood, I said it in the minutes. I don't have the minutes in front of me, but I reread the minutes from that meeting.
Mhm.
I think that should be a major modification. The developer should ask for the release, and we should notify all the people that live in there to know that the open space that they thought was there isn't there,
Okay, yeah,
to the extent they thought it was.
yeah.
Um,
I think,
um,
well, I think I'm sorry, based on this, I think the applicant doesn't want to open up that can of worms. Cannot speak for them. So it looks like they want to just kind of, based on like my little,
But I'm not gonna vote on something, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, that I'm not gonna modify a subdivision. We already have people up there that have been, and some of them feel like they've been deceived by the developer and the original person that got this permitted, so.
sure. And is there a methodology too where that portion of that lot, the applicant comes in with an A&R, I can't, like I said, cannot speak for the applicant, but is there a methodology where the applicant comes in for an A&R plan and separates that portion of the property in the rear and essentially relinquishes that ability to have an estate lot there? I don't think that's their intention. I think their intention is to build with that special permit on there. But something of that action could possibly relieve some of the issues that the board may have, but we're still getting into an issue of the Nolan Park LLC subdivision if they've made a modification to that plan.
But again, Shane, I think the board is being asked to fix an issue
Sure, yeah.
created by private parties.
Yes,
Hey,
And I think the private parties need to work it out.
Excuse me, there is no, the board is the only one who has control over the restrictive covenant. If we go to the court and ask them to remove the restrictive covenant, I'm trying to tell you that I believe that it's not in the best interest of the town for us to do that.
Why is that? Just that, why? I would rather do right by the people in that subdivision and have you sue the town than not modify that subdivision.
First of all, sir, we are not suing the town. What we would do is have a declaratory judgment, go before the land court and ask if that restrictive covenant that the planning board put on is correct and it is allowed to restrict the other land. And I wouldn't want it to hurt Norland Park subdivision. And I think that it would be in the best interest of the board if they understood the ramifications and talked to town council.
Board questions or comments?
Yeah, if I may again, as I think I alluded to before, this is a confusing issue for my mind. I think the chair has made a compelling case for the fact that this was a mistake or whatever between two developers and that it shouldn't have happened. They should correct it. But at the same time, I do think that all the issues should be presented to town council. And at least we get a ruling from town council as to what options this board has in terms of deciding this, whether we have an ability to change the covenant. Do we have any ability at all to change? I don't know. And I'm just saying, I think for the applicant and for the town, it'd be good for the town attorney to have some sort of ruling. At the same time, again, what I'm saying is that the chair is presenting a strong argument as what to do, but I think town council should weigh in.
I also agree. I think, we should get further guidance before we make any decisions. I wouldn't want to decide tonight.
I'm on the same page.
I'm not, I feel bad for the people that bought it. I don't. There were attorneys involved. There were people that got this permitted long before we were on the board. The intent was supposed to be open space, so they shouldn't have done what they did. So I think it should be held up. I think it should remain as open space. So, but we can. So, you want a motion to send it to Attorney Rollins, or do we want to just?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, that all the issues, facts, figures, whatever, be presented to town council, and that the town council give us a written opinion as to what the issues are in this case, what the options are for the planning board in terms of a decision, and what he would recommend.
So Shane,
Yeah.
how could the board communicate with Attorney Rollins? Could we have an executive session?
Well, executive session would be for primarily a case that's at hand where we would need
All right,
legal counsel.
You'll get him all the info then, and then he'll give us.
Yeah, well, I would say that Mr. Rollins' options that he would give us is that the board votes in favor or votes against. But in terms of I would say that based on the new information presented by Attorney Heffernan, that the Attorney Rollins relook at this. Like I said, I talked to him in August regarding this matter, and he seemed to be taking the approach of the chair on this matter. However, with new information provided and the case law provided recently, I think I can get something to Attorney Rollins and maybe place it on maybe the November 16th agenda as a potential turnaround. But I'll have to see what his availability is as well to look at this and see if is kind of providing a written opinion on the matter or just kind of a more written analysis. So I know that this was something that was intended on being completed and in March of 2021, and we kind of fell to the wayside. But I think that another month isn't going to hurt it, especially when the board is willing to kind of try to make the best decision for the town on this matter based on what the applicant is trying to do, as well as protecting the intent of the initial decision of the Norland Park subdivision.
Shane, just to be clear, my motion, if it's seconded, is that all the information be presented, that the town council give us our options as a planning board, and also what he would recommend, and in writing. That's my motion.
Would we continue the hearing, sir?
Yeah, we'll continue to November 16th, it looks like, correct? Mr. O'Brien, is that,
It does if, well, I'm just basing it on the turnaround. I think November 2nd would be too quick. So I would say that probably I would recommend November 16th if the applicant is open to that.
who sold the land to Mr. Wood? Was it Mr. Hall or Mr. Schneider?
I can, let me pull up the,
Mr. Hall?
we talking the sale of the $25,000 sale.
So it must have been Mr. Schneider because the deed,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
who sold the land to Mr. Wood? Was it Mr. Schneider or Mr. Hall?
Mr. Hall sold the land to Mr. Schneider, and then Mr. Schneider sold it to Kathleen Wood.
So as mentioned in that, my wonderful little drawing, that sale of those rear parcels, it was for $25,000 with the quick claim covenants. And it referred to, oddly enough, the plan of estates, the A&R plan, which didn't show them as separate parcels, but they show them as, you know, they mentioned the certain dimensions of said plans with each, you know, designated through that concrete bound.
We don't approve the deed or anything. I mean, it's,
No, sales are sales. We don't typically see sales, but it referred to the only thing that's of note is that it referred to that A&R plan that didn't refer to them as separate parcels.
I still think it's between Mr. Schneider and Bill Carolina, but.
But we do have, I believe, a motion on the floor.
So we have a motion and a second. So motion by Mr. Jimmy. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
By Mr. McDonald? And the motion is to send everything to Mr. Rollins and Attorney Rollins and ask for the options and some guidance on that. Is that correct, Mr.
That's
Jimmy?
correct. And we get a written opinion.
Ms. Ross,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. I don't want him to tell us how to vote because we might all vote differently, but we want the options, correct?
correct.
I'm sorry, what date was that for the hearing that you decided? November 16th?
Well, I think we can actually have a second. I think the board can do a second motion to continue this matter. Because that motion was just for this item to be sent
Yeah,
over
Terrence,
to
keep
Attorney
it-
Rollins.
Do we have a motion to put this on the 11/16 meeting at 6:30?
I'll make the motion to 11/16 at 6:30.
Do we have a second?
I'll
I
second.
can second.
Mr. McDonald? So, Ms. Ross,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy,
Yes,
and I'm a yes.
Mr. O'Brien, may I have a copy of the decision before, to give me time to review it before the meeting?
Yes, let me,
Mr. Attorney Rollins represents us, though, correct?
yeah, that would, I'll have to talk to Attorney Rollins on that. But I don't see whereas there would be an issue that well, if the board is looking for a legal opinion, it's difficult to. Well, let me talk to Jason about that. Let me talk to the town council about that. So,
I would say we need to leave it up to the attorney. If he's comfortable sharing his opinion with the other attorney, that's up to him.
okay. But I would say that we're not going to look for any surprises. So we can have that discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we'll go back. Is anybody here from Long Built Homes yet? Attorney Castaneda?
I don't have anything from Long Built Homes. Lee, as recent as this week, said he.
And we have a
be here.
recommendation from the town engineer to not release all of it, correct? That they were looking for?
Well, we did receive a memo from Greg Tansey that was provided to the board before the last meeting. But Lee Castaneda did request a continuance. However, we did
So
not.
my question is, do we want to discuss the items without the applicant being present, or do we want to have them be present at the next meeting?
I would leave this up to the board as part of this.
Mr. Chairman, if there's any issue with anything that comes before the board, I think the proponent should be present. And so in this case, if there is any, even a minor discrepancy or discussion, I think we should wait for representatives to be present at the next meeting.
Correct. And I think there's some
Mr.
issues
Simmons.
in regards to Mr. Tansey's review, correct? Mr. Tansey, there's some things that you did not agree with that we were going to discuss, potentially modifying that bond release request.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would like to just let the board know that I went through a lot of line items and found that some work has not been completed. Some work has been completed. They did a lot of paving over the last year. They actually, over the last week, they did fix the handicapped access ramps on the
Well,
sidewalk.
I guess, just so we don't have to do this twice, Mr. Tansey, and I don't mean to cut you off, does the board want to continue down this road without the applicant here, or do we want to wait till the applicant is here?
I think we should wait till the applicant.
I'd rather wait too.
I'm fine with that.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Tansey. I don't mean to do
Oh,
this, guys.
that's perfectly all right, Mr. Chairman. I agree with your decision.
I think if it's not clear cut, we're going to be discussing modifying amounts other than what was asked for, Mr. O'Brien, we should have the applicant here.
Oh, sure. I just want to make sure I'm not muted. Okay. Yeah, I just want to confirm that I did send an email to Attorney Castanetti. Let me just read it for the record's sakes. October 13th, 2022 at 8:23 a.m. Hi, Lee. Wanted to follow up if you'd be in attendance for next week's planning board meeting. Best Shane. Lee at 8:41 a.m. of the same day. Yes, I will. Send from phone. And I said, thanks. And on Thursday, 10:13 at, I guess, whatever time, I sent him over a copy of the agenda with the Zoom information. I said, please find the attached agenda. Please let me know if you have any questions. And that's the last correspondence I had.
Through
You
you,
may not even know this was on tonight, is that what you're saying? Maybe.
I gave him all the information to let him know that he would be on tonight and on as part of the agenda.
through you, Mr. Chairman,
you have
I would suggest, Shane, that whenever we have something and the proponent's is presenting something, that it will be made clear to them that we will not discuss it unless they're present in the future.
And ma'am, you're just showing up as admin. I saw you had your hand up. You can,
Yes, sorry, I don't know how to change the name. My name's Eileen White and I'm a resident of Oldfield Estates. We, as residents, did have a meeting with Mr. Castanetti last week. And I verbally confirmed with him that this was still on the agenda for next week because several of us were on the last one on September 21st. He said yes. So I know as of last Wednesday, he was aware and said that he was going to be at this meeting. This was still going to take place today. I just wanted to say that.
no, and I think if anybody is on here that wants to bring items to our attention, if the best thing between now and the next meeting might be to send an email to Shane.
Okay.
And then also, you could also attend the next meeting, but, so let's see. So what is the will of the board? Do we want to continue this to our next meeting on November 2nd?
I'll make a motion to continue it to the next meeting in a second.
Second,
Yeah, I'll second that.
by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion?
This is Naomi Hall. I'm also an Oldfield Preserve resident. Can you hear me?
Yep, you go ahead, Ms. Hall. We have a motion, we're to continue this, but go ahead.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just had a question as far as, if the long bill lawyer doesn't make it to the next meeting, how does that generally? Well, maybe after, maybe after.
We'll
the
address it
meeting.
at the next meeting.
Okay,
But for right now, we're gonna continue it. We have a motion and a second to continue it to November 2nd. So I'll take the roll. Ms.
Second.
Rojas,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald,
Yes,
Mr. Jemian,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. So that'll be back on November 2nd at 6:30. All right, so item 4 on the agenda, other business. Replaying the minutes from August 3rd, August 10th, and August 17th. We continued some of these from the last meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Jemian, do a second.
I can second that.
By Ms. Rojas. Mr. Jemian,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald,
yes,
Ms. Rojas.
Yes,
Yes, okay. Board reports, plenary reports, engineering reports, next on the agenda.
Yes,
Mr. Tanzi, Mr. O'Brien.
I have a quick 30-second thing. Just update on the tree board. Some of us are meeting with the subcommittee of the council tomorrow night, and hopefully from that point on, it will go to a second reading with the full council and then be approved. That's it.
Thank you. That's tomorrow night, Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, tomorrow night. It's virtual.
Mr. O'Brien.
Nothing too crazy our way. The November 2nd planning board meeting. We'll have a joint meeting with the CED committee regarding proposed zoning ordinance language for an increase to the square footage of accessory dwelling units or in-law apartments to from 600 square feet to 800 square feet. So after this meeting, I can provide that information based on a vote for the board. I'm sorry, not a vote for the board, but providing the ordinance to the board and the order for the board for them to review, for you guys to review in the meeting in 2 weeks. The other item I have, let me just share my screen. There is some trainings available as we do have some new members, or if you just want to refresh, CPTC is having their fall workouts. There are some webinars in regards to such matters as roles and responsibilities, revising rules and regulations, site plan review, special permits, variances, et cetera, et cetera. So if any board members are interested, please let us know. So registration actually closed for roles and responsibilities, but we did get this literally yesterday. But there are some nice webinars and presentations in regards to roles and responsibilities. But please let us know. The next one is November 1st. So 2 through 10 are some opportunities for the board to learn a couple things from some planning professionals other than myself. So there that, please let us know if you're interested. What else? We've been attending, working on our Green Communities annual report for this year with the Energy Committee. I met with Greg in a zoo last week in regards to our subdivision rules and regulations. So we'll meet a couple more times before we are presenting some sort of draft to the board. But I'll let Ray know that we are looking into, I myself am looking into trees in terms of separating trees into categories of, fruit bearing trees, shade trees, large trees, small trees for subdivision consideration, as well as considerations of other matters for subdivisions, just to be updated from 2018, which is the last time we updated our subdivision rules and regulations. And additionally, we've been attending MBTA communities webinars every Wednesday at noon time with anticipation of the MBTA communities requirement of areas with commuter rail, subway, or adjacent communities as well. So we've been attending that. We've had some good informational sessions to see if we'll have to create some zoning to meet the requirements, or if there's current zoning in place that currently meet those requirements. So that's an ongoing item that we've been working on. And additionally, actually, that's it for now. So I'm all good.
Shane, just, could you just amplify just a little bit on what the MBTA is talking about?
They're looking to provide, MBTA communities are looking to require communities to allow for as of right multifamily housing in districts established in areas designated as MBTA communities. So there are pretty much any city or town that is on an MBTA community route or adjacent to one would have to require have as of right multifamily housing. So that wouldn't be special permit and that wouldn't be mixed use housing in a particular district or in their zoning regulations as to maintain allowance of receiving certain grants by the state. So that was enacted as part of the zoning, one of the zoning act changes presented by the Massachusetts legislator.
Shane, I think Ray brings up a good point. Like, I don't think a lot of people know about it.
Sure.
I followed it and I've read the guidelines that have come out, but I think Mrs. DeBobrand made a presentation to the council
Mhm.
as a PowerPoint I saw, or I saw it on one of the council meetings. Is that something we could get and send to the board? Because I think she kind of simplified it.
Yeah, I can check what council meeting that occurred and I can send the YouTube link
So I
out.
think that was the first box we had to check, was in order to be in compliance for the rest of this year, was to do a educational meeting for the council, correct?
That is correct, yes.
But we also have areas, Ray, like Waterford, that's a 40R district that they can build. It's 114 acres, and if they wanted to, they could build 20 to 22 units as of right. So what Shane's saying is that might qualify us. We have to have, I think, in Bridgewater, 20% of the land area within a half mile of the MBTA. But the other 80% can be outside the half mile, which Waterford is right at the entrance of. So
Yeah, it's just something that we will be probably working with the board and working
what we might already
internally.
qualify us for, we might have to extend Waterford a little bit or something like that.
Yeah, it's just something that we're gonna look at internally. It's not something we have to meet the requirements for until I believe 2013 or 2024.
The end of 2025, I think we have to adopt zoning, right? 2024, 2025.
I think it's 2024 for us. It could be 2023, but either or, it's something just wanted to let you guys know of. There are also Mass Housing Partnerships has a lot of their information online. They've had webinars as well as DHCD regarding that if anyone's interested. But I'm happy to, I'll shoot around an email to the board, just kind of mentioning a little bit more of it just for informational purposes.
Yeah, maybe send out what you did and then the finalized guidelines that are on that website now.
Sure thing.
Oh, also Shane, could you shoot me that list of classes you had brought up earlier?
Absolutely.
Thank
Same
you.
here.
I mean, I took those when I first got on years ago. Those were great. I mean, we had to, I used to go with Lisa Sullivan and Michael White. That's how they helped me a lot in the beginning. They were great.
I've taken
Yeah,
some
I
that's
might
really good.
Might try to sneak into that first one, the roles and responsibilities, see if they'll accept the late registration. Usually you reach out to people like that, they'll sneak you in.
That's tomorrow. The town, when we took them before, the town would reimburse us. Is that still the case, Shane?
I believe so, but I would have to confirm with Jen on that.
Well,
But yeah,
I mean-
I believe we have money set aside budget wise for allowance for.
I did ask her in the
Lieutenant.
past. She said the town will reimburse us.
Okay.
But not even reimburse us. They will, you will do the registration. It's a perk that we get as planning board members.
Yes.
Mr. Greg, quick question for you. Are we working on any of these roads in town, like are we advancing any of these roads like South Street or Flag Street or any, is there a lot of engineering going on behind the scenes to upgrade these roads, or is that still kind of on the back burner.
Well, I can speak to Flag Street.
I know it's not really planning board related, but it's just.
Yeah, well, Flag Street has been designed by an outside firm called STV. And it's ready to go. All new drainage and water main, all that infrastructure, and even regrading to solve some of the drainage issues out on Flag Street have been designed. We have the set of plans. We don't have the money appropriated. That's not a Chapter 90 project. Flag Street has not been designed by an outside consultant. I'm sorry, Winter Street has not been designed by an outside consultant. It's a street that I have been looking at, and I have developed a base sheet plan. What needs to be done with Winter Street is we need to rehab the drainage system. If you don't rehab the drainage system, if you repave it, you're only going to have the same desecration of pavement that you're getting now. And a lot of that washout and settlement is a result of drainage issues that have not been resolved. So that's where those two streets stand at the moment.
What about Sill Street and Cross Street and all those other streets we've been talking about for years, Verney Street? Is there anything progressing on any of those? I mean, they're in terrible shape, so.
On South Street, no. Flag and Winter are the only two streets that we have actual engineering work being done. The other streets, we've done quite an extensive amount of cost estimating and planning to for rehab and going to construction. But as far as actual engineering design work to restore those streets, they have not been initiated as of this time.
Just observation. I was happened to be at the planning board at the council meeting when one of the councilors asked the town manager how he prioritizes streets to be repaved, and he gave a lengthy explanation, which he lost me in it. I'll tell you right now. How the town determines which street to repave and redo. I guess partly it's due to, obviously, as you said, Mr. Tandy, break, a bad street, but also whether there's a lot of traffic on it or not. I don't know. It seems like a complicated process, though.
Yeah,
It seems like if some of these streets get much worse, we're gonna be in trouble, so.
Yeah, it is a complicated process. We did go through a weighted average situation where we rated situations to be, more important than others. We also took into account how busy a street is. That will always result in a prioritization, and the actual condition of the pavement itself. So we took all these factors into consideration. Azu, myself, Jonas, Paul, DeCosta, we all looked at what we felt was the basic prioritized condition of different components of these streets. We assigned them a particular number, if you will, and then we just ran the math and averaged it out, and we developed a rating system. And then the roads that had the highest rating system, they became a priority.
Right.
Flag Street was actually the priority because it did have a lot of those components that it needs a lot of work. Plus, it's ready to go. It's been designed. So anything that has a design ready to go and the street is in very poor condition and of need of several major upgrades, that itself categorically includes it into one of the more priority streets.
Quick question, Greg. They repaved Center Street, then they tore up part of it after they repaved it. You know why?
Oh, yes. Part of it was on Center Street, a downpour came and the mix was not, after we looked at it, the pavement was not up to snuff. There's already some desecration in the pavement. So we had them mill a section of that pavement out and replace it. There was another place up by the church. And the pavement wasn't graded very well. And in fact, there was a little bit of a hump just upgrading of a catch basin that was causing a lot of runoff bypass. It wasn't quite graded as well. That day when they did the paving, the pavement crew was not a typical pavement crew. They had guys in there that really don't work pavement. They might have been mechanics, they might have been estimators, but they weren't a genuine paving crew. So they had to come back. This is the paving contractor at their expense, remill the defects out of the pavement and regrade the pavement. And when they did grade the pavement, they had very well, highly experienced paving crew on board. So that was in Center Street. There was also some issues on Mount Prospect Street from the school out to Center Street. The crown was not quite right. It really just was not a quality job. The edge of the road was not straight. So Paul DeCosta and I got the contractor out there and we just showed him the defects and he agreed. I mean, just by looking at it. So they milled a substantial section of Mount Prospect from Center up to the first entry to the school and the apron into that first entry into the school. And they reworked the pavement and it's much, much better.
Okay, thank you. I figured that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? I'll ask this, but we don't have to answer it now. What happened to the money that when we approved the Broad Street project, we tried to incorporate some amenities into a grant that we received for 440 grand to do bump outs and crosswalks and improve Broad Street. Has that been lost because we haven't done it yet? Are you aware of that, Shane?
I'm not totally familiar with that.
There's a grant that we were awarded to do bump through, and there was a design done for Broad Street. And when we were looking at the downtown projects, we looked at that and how that would affect the project and how we could tie different things into it.
I can look into that and email the board.
I think what I heard, the town wasn't ready and it got bumped, but I just want to know if that was true because that's somebody asked me about that.
Yeah, I can't confirm or deny. I'd have to look into it to give the board
It had nothing to do with
the
our
correct
approval.
answer.
It had nothing to do with our approval down there. It was something the town did anyway. It was just, it was some removing of some parking spaces and almost making like islands to safe crosswalks and some tree planting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll have to check into that. I'll get back to you guys.
Nothing's happened on that, on Broad Street. They believe the approval runs out next March or something. But there's no movement to sell the property or anything like that.
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, thank you.
Motion to adjourn, if there's nothing else.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a second?
I'll second.
I fell asleep.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Jemian?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Good night,
Thanks, everyone.
Take it easy.
Have a happy Halloween, everyone.
You as well.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.